Musical and artistic creativity have been a part of the Sinai experience since the very beginning. Come with us now as we meet some of the people who bring new and interesting facets to that creativity. This is Musical Mondays Plus. Ross Inglis is a talented violinist, pianist, organist, singer, conductor, and composer. In fact, the composer of the long-running musical review O Canada Air that just closed recently in Niagara Falls after 26 years. Here is our High Holiday music director and conductor being interviewed by Temple member David Eisner.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Musical Creative Mondays. We have with us someone who every time I see, I'm inspired by. He's a wonderful musician. You've seen him on every high holiday for the past 11 years, starting off as a singer and then a conductor for the professional choir. He's a runner, and we'll get into all the other things he does. Ladies and gentlemen, Ross Inglis. How are you, Ross?
I'm doing really well. How are you, David?
Good. I'm playing
Good.
music from Hammer Band, where you're playing with Moishe Hammer, and we'll get into that in a minute. That is you in front of the storefront. But I wanted to ask you, first of all, how you're coping with COVID. Have you done anything other than work? Has it changed your lifestyle in any way?
Well, it's changed everything, right? I mean, everything's upside down. And so our lives are based around, especially as musicians, around our work, right? So definitely how I connect with all of my students is very different. And in some ways, music's 24/7 when you're working with choirs, when you're working synagogue, church, everything is sort of up in the air, right? All the groups that get together for social gatherings are gone or meeting in different ways. And so whether it's the synagogue choir or my church choir, so yeah, everything's a little different, right? We're still going to the grocery store. We're not doing the delivery in like some people are doing. But outside of that, for especially the first 2 months, it's amazing how we were self-isolated and outside of Zoom, FaceTime.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Is there any vestige of what's going on that you've had to make an adjustment or change in your lifestyle? You are someone who, as you said yesterday, we did a little pre-interview about redlining it, in the sense of going the distance and a bit further with your everyday work and filling in your day.
yeah.
It's the opposite of that. And I know, although it's probably been busy virtually, has this made you adjust in certain ways that you might keep afterwards?
Yeah, well, it feels like an early retirement. I mean, it makes you think, oh, do I really need to be working as hard as I did before? It definitely makes you question everything. It's been nice. And just for family, more time with family, more chances around the dinner table.
Sure.
And so some of those things for sure, you go, that's really nice. A lot more cooking together. And yeah, so that's those things you think, after this changes, although who knows, right? I mean, it's not going to be a sudden change back.
No.
Just today, the news from the education is saying it's going to be some combination of things going forward.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely makes you question what you did before and whether it really made sense to do that much.
Right.
But,
and maybe
we're still able to. We live close to the Rouge Valley. We're just on the other side in Pickering, and so we run in the Rouge Valley right through the whole time, 3-4 times a week.
Unbelievable. And we'll get into your running in a second. But just so people who might not be aware, you've been with the professional choir of Temple Sinai for the past 11 years, 2 years as a singer and 9 years, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, as a conductor?
Right. Yes, yeah. And actually, even before that, I think after the first year, when Cantor Gershon was leading the music, and Donna Sherman was conducting. We were using mimeographed, horrible books where we had, I think, 4 binders of stuff that had been photocopied so many times it was hard to read. And the Hebrew had been changed to Ashkenazi Hebrew, so all the vowels were crossed out 2 or 3 times, and very difficult. So rehearsals were difficult, and I said, I could put that on the computer. So I spent, I don't know, I suppose a whole summer or maybe even a year putting all of the music onto the computer. So it just made it so there's 2 binders, and some of those services, there's 30 musical elements in one service.
Right.
For a Kol Nidre. So those services sort of put it all together, and that made it an easier job for me to become conductor the 3rd year and sort of be on top of it, especially when Charles came and suddenly we were adding a lot more music to the services. So yes, I've been at the synagogue now about 11 years. Yeah.
And what was the connection? I mean, you didn't grow up Jewish, but you're connected to faith in, I think, a profound, wonderful way, as you mentioned, with Knox United out in Agincourt, and we'll get to that. But what was your connection to Temple Sinai? How did that come about?
Well, it was weird. I was playing piano for Donna Sherman's classes at the Glenn Gould School and Conservatory, and she was looking for a tenor for the choir. They needed a new tenor for the professional choir for the high holidays, and so I said, "Well, sure, I'll try it out." And so I got the position there. And at that point, Joan Dolgan was taking lessons from Donna in voice, and so got to know the Dolgan family and started accompanying the 3 boys in the next, 6-7 years for conservatory exams, university auditions, and we got to know the Dolgan family very well. And then when we needed a new conductor, Gershon said, "Well, Ross, you should probably do some of that." So, and from that, even the last 2 years, it's changed because now for bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, it's either Mark Camilleri or myself on piano or organ. So, which is wonderful, is to be part of the Shabbat services as well. So.
What is it like for you not being Jewish? I mean, and yet I think you've been ensconced and in some ways more observant, so to speak, by going to all of the services and the Shabbat and the milestone services.
Well, it's true. Seeing Rabbi Dolgan's sermons twice for the same service is always interesting, as he goes around a different way to get to the same topic, and quite amazing to hear his sermons twice. Not suggesting that you do each service, the 3-hour services, twice on high holidays, but it is quite an experience.
It is his gift for off the cuff, never reading, and giving a sermon is remarkable. I mean,
it is. So yeah, it's been really interesting because it's been a progression.
Yes.
When I started, even maybe the first 4 or 5 years, I felt very much like there is a term for it for the non-Jews that are helping in services. I can't think of what it is, but very much that changed as after 5-6 years. People in the congregation were welcoming me and making me part of the family. But musically, that was there immediately. So again, music is this language that covers everything, right?
Right.
And professional singers are used to singing in languages where they don't understand word for word. You know conceptually what phrases are about, or at least the whole piece is about. But as many observers, Jewish observers, you don't really know every word, right? So the language is there because we trust the composers. And you have such amazing composers connected to Temple Sinai. I'm thinking Ben Steinberg and Charles, and that really the music matches the words so much that you get a feeling of the meaning from the music. In both of my places of worship, it's the music that pulls me in. It's the music that brings the emotion, and I think changes words and concepts and makes them more profound.
You find a sense of divinity and faith when you're at the Temple Sinai services to the same degree?
I find a sense of divinity in anything that I'm doing musically, where if I'm teaching an 8-year-old violinist, or I'm running in the Rouge. I mean, you find it in a lot of different places, right? But the music and the variety of the music really brings you in a different way than words alone.
It was interesting. I'm connected with the Harold Green Jewish Theater Company. Our last show before COVID was called The Pianist of Williston Lane. And she played classical piano. It's about a young girl who survives the Holocaust by getting on the Kinder transport and going to England. And
Wow.
she ends up being a famous pianist. The person who plays her is her daughter.
Wow.
In real life, and she's a Grammy-nominated pianist. And there's a lot of classical music in it. But I was it's so interesting to me how it really went directly to the heart. The music, classical music, in a way, profoundly hit them in a way that a different way, but certainly as profound, if not deeper, than a regular play. It
Right.
just is so affecting. Sometimes music, it transcends. There's no words, and it's so it's transformative and transcendent in a way, and connects you. That is unique art form in itself.
Yeah, yeah. Theater. I hadn't done some theater for quite a while, but just in January and February, before this wild situation that we're in happened, I joined the Scarborough Theatre Guild for a production of The Cripple of Inishmaan, which is one of the Irish plays by the playwright who just passed away. He's a British playwright. A lot of movies as well. I'm sorry, I can't come up with his name. He just passed away.
No, not Harold Pinter.
Like 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, he passed away. And one of the main.
McNally?
Sorry?
Terrence McNally?
Yeah. Yes, McNally. That's right. Terrence McNally. So he did 3 or 4 Irish plays.
Right.
Anyway, it's a very heavy play. Historical, actually. It's really interesting, where they actually had some Hollywood producers went to this little island of Inishmaan off Ireland and filmed and brought some people back. Anyway, the director decided to have fiddle music in between all of the scenes and acts. So it's not a full play, and I was the fiddler in full costume, and I would show up at different parts of the theater. It's a theater in the Round in Scarborough, small theater, about 200 people. And it was really amazing to see how the audience reacted. And of course, I did different fiddle tunes depending on the scene, right? So if it ended with some violence, there was some harsh sounds on the violin. And it really, you saw people, that were tense from the scene jump because they were so into what was happening. It's really fascinating how music does add that.
Elevate.
To something already there.
Yeah, elevate. Speaking of theater, Ross Inglis started, and this is true for every person I've interviewed. They start in one art form in culture, and they go to another. You started in theater.
Well, I did a lot of theater. So I started.
On your exposure to the arts.
Well, yes, for sure. My father is a PhD music educator, Dr. Tom Engels, very well known in Niagara. I grew up in St. Catharines, across the lake. Wow. And he was music director of Garden City Productions, GCP, for about 45 years. Actually, I think he did one last year, so I think it's more than that. So yeah, I was playing already in youth orchestras and playing classical music for years before getting into the theater, but always was experiencing it. So at about age 9, so I was already old. At 9, I started playing violin in the pit bands for the theater company. So doing, Annie and Fiddler on the Roof and all the good standards. And so sort of loved watching the theater and sort of did tap dancing myself. And I was a lead tap dancer in 42nd Street in high school. And so fun stuff, but really separate from what I was studying. Through high school, I was already doing a lot of music direction myself of theater companies in Niagara Falls, the Fire Hall Theater, and but it was because of my classical that I could do that. So I realized at the end of high school that I had to go into music because everything outside of school was all music. I was filling all my times in music, so continuing was the only thing I could really do. Okay. Oh no! Should we clap it on?
Yes, maybe the clap would work too. Yeah. How many instruments do you play?
Well, I teach all orchestral instruments. So I After university, living in St. Catharines, I taught instrumental music for the Niagara District School Board, anyway, the Niagara District School Board. And so that was teaching brass, woodwinds, and violin was my first instrument. But my degree is in performance piano from Eastman School of Music in Rochester. Wow. So piano is my main thing. And after university, it was a lot of choral work. So I started doing more choral experience, singing with Mendelssohn Choir. And for about 5 years, I was the assistant conductor and assistant accompanist for the Mendelssohn Choir. So from that and my church choir, I do an awful lot with choirs. So that was a really good connection to start working at Temple.
Right, because you get to incorporate some of your music as well as the choral aspect to it.
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing. And
actually, the other really important thing for Temple Sinai is because of my connection with Mendelssohn Choir and the Alora Festival Singers that I was a member of, I was able to hire all of the the choral singers that again, almost all, I think this last year we had one Jewish singer in the professional choir, but the rest are people who've spent their lives learning how to sing in every language and sing in very different types of worship experience. Because you have to be able to throw those together, all that music together very quickly. So right. It's
Well, you elevate the experience of the temple congregation with magnificent choral music and the music that you put together. And you work at, I should say work, but also a congregational member of Knox United. And you do the choir music there for how long?
That's right. Yeah. So it's sure not the size of the congregation of Temple Sinai. We have about 200 families at Knox United. This is in Agincourt, which is North Scarborough, corner of Midland and Shepherd. So it's just down the road. It's not on Wilson, but it's pretty much parallel, just on the north side of the 401 instead of the south side. And I've been there for 12 years as well, so it's a very similar time period. It's shortly after I actually moved from St. Catharines to Toronto. And so I've been there ever since. And there's 32 people in that choir. So it's a little bit different than synagogue services. Every Sunday morning, we have the 32 people in the choir. That's year round, even during the summer, although not the last 3 months, which has been awfully hard for that group. Yeah. But yeah, so that's a large choir and a full pipe organ. It's a 1918 Cassavant organ that I play. So I play and conduct them at the same time. And a piano as well for the contemporary works. So like all places of worship, there's a combination of more traditional and very new music that's been written in the last 10 years. So we sometimes have bass, drum, guitar for those services, but usually it's organ and choir.
Right, and the congregation demographic has sort of shifted and changed over the years.
Yeah, well, definitely. Agincourt is known for being one of the centers of Chinese culture as well. Mm-hmm. And so I'd say congregation members that were there 50 years ago have really seen a change in that area. So yeah, we actually do the services once a month in English and Mandarin at the same time. The big guy can handle it. And that way we get everyone praying in their language. And we have the scriptures read in Mandarin, and you can read along in English if you want. So that's sort of neat to have that. And we have the Chinese Christian Fellowship group in all of our committees and in my choir, and so it's really quite wonderful to have that mix happening. Mm-hmm. The motto is diverse in culture, united in faith.
Beautiful.
Which is a good motto for Toronto, really, with the incredible diversity that we have.
100%, a good model for
the world.
Right
Yeah.
But you give back as well, Inglis, in profound ways. And I know that the Hammer Band, you're not busy enough. You're involved with Moshe Hammer, who is, interestingly enough, is he Jewish or?
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
And your combination of the two of you, and I would imagine there are 2 other instructors as well, but you go to underprivileged areas and give them the gift of music.
It's an amazing program, David. So it started 12 years ago in that summer that we called the Summer of the Gun, where there were young kids dying in gang warfare. And to be honest, last summer was almost as bad. I mean, it's an ongoing situation that that's going to be worked on for a long time, and hopefully we'll see improvement. But out of that experience, Moshe Hammer saw that and said, those areas should have music. Those kids should have music. So he went to the principals of a few schools and said, do you have music? Can I come and teach violin in your school? And they said, you mean for free? And Moshe said yes. And so he started with a few schools, and we now have 42 schools that range right from Brampton all the way. I have a few schools in Oshawa as well. And so we're going to go more into Durham coming up. So over 1,000 students in the program. This last year I had 250 violinists. So we do school in school starting in grade 3 or 4. And there's a few that continue in middle school. And I have a program down in Regent Park that for kids that are in their 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th year in the program. So this one group that I'll have actually this afternoon. We're taping on Friday. I'm not sure. Is it Monday that this is shown? Is that right?
This is shown on Mondays, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm messing all up the magic of theater here. But we're filming on Friday, and about an hour and a half, I'll have 20 kids from grade 5 to grade 11 all joining together on a Zoom meeting. And so they're the advanced class, and we're actually looking at Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik, da 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 da. And so people who have been in that program, they started in the Hammer Band. So it's pretty amazing because you're going to schools that have almost nothing, and the kids have no way to do music lessons outside of the Hammer Band.
And music, if you can explain to our audience how that plays into their curriculum in school, their intelligence, their ability to raise their intelligence, ways of thinking.
Well, yeah, there's piles of studies that say if you want to get somebody better at languages and math, reading, science, music does it all. Music does the mathematics, language, the analytical, the expression, the ability to empathize. There are books written about the number of things that music changes. So, but for sure, if you want to increase somebody's focus, calm their thoughts down, music is incredible. And violin is one of those things that makes you focus. One of the things that I always love doing when I do a demonstration for a school, I get all the grade 4 kids in, and there's usually a principal there. And I say, well, let's see how your principal does. And never having touched a violin, they try to put it here, and the actual coordination of playing takes years, but it also takes focus. And so you see a principal who suddenly and everything stops in the room because they're focused so much, and every kid in the room is suddenly focused. And some of these schools have some focus issues. I mean, everyone has focus issues, right? And a way to meditate is through music. Plus, just the sound of the instrument itself. But the coordination of violin, the right hand, left hand doing different things, the spatial relations, it's an incredible thing to see the kids come in, often dealing with problems. They come in from recess, and they're sort of talking to each other, they're aggressive, they get their violins out, they tune their violins, and a moment later,
Back in Ireland.
It just brings everyone in. And some of the schools I'm at, the principal and vice principal sort of question, you're doing violin? What? When you go to the school to start the program, I don't think this is the right school for that. And then they come 4 months later, and you see them walk in and look in as all the kids are focused playing, and it's a pretty beautiful thing.
There's a movie there.
I think there have been actually, but
there have been in the past, and there's one maybe for the Hammer Band. While you have the violin or the piano, whatever you prefer, could you play something for us?
I would love to. I'd love to. I had thought about doing one of Charles' tunes, but the tempo gets a lot of Charles right now, and one that you used to get a lot more of Ben Steinberg. I'd like to do one of Ben Steinberg's, just a short bit, okay? Because for a few reasons. One being that a friend of mine in Pickering just a short while ago said, my daughter's playing violin for some retirement homes, and found out that this next week that she's playing at a place where there's a famous composer that lives there, and wondering if you would happen to know, because he's a Jewish composer, do you know any Jewish music that we might be able to do? I said, who is it? Well, it's Ben Steinberg. And I said, well, I think we could do something. And this family actually has 4 string players and a singer in the family. Oh, wow. The kids are between age 15 and 22. And so I was able to arrange it for string quartet. And so they last week played the string quartet version and sang this. You know it well.
Beautiful.
Shalom Rav Israel Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Israel Amcha Tasim Leolam.
Beautiful.
On,
I do remember that song.
Oh yeah,
oh,
it's good. It grabs your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully done. And let's go away from music for a minute and talk about some of the other parts of your life, because I was astounded by the amount of marathons you have run, which is 20.
It's a good question. I've lost count because I started combining. I think it's about 21 marathons, but then I've done about 9 or 10 ultra marathons.
Ultra marathons. What is an ultra marathon?
So depends if you're a pure ultra marathonist or not. Obviously, the first concept would be an ultra marathon is anything more than a marathon. So the entrance ultra marathons are 50K. So that's 41K is a marathon. So 50 is a nice round number. So it's not too much farther, 9K, right? But most ultra marathoners think 50 miles is the first one that's a real, so that's almost 2 marathons for a 50 mile. And then you get the 100K, and there's a whole pile of 100-mile races. There's only a few in Canada, but around the world, there's 100-mile races. It was, there's some very huge, some that you have to win a lottery to get in. Western states, in the States,
really?
Western states, where is it? Not Arizona, mountains anyway. And it's you have to win a lottery to get in, because there's so many people that want to be able to do the race, and only a certain number on the trails.
So not only that amount of miles, but it's also hilly?
It's also hilly, that's right. Yeah, which actually, it's when you're running longer, trails are very, very much easier to run on for your joints. You're not doing the same motion constantly on a road. Oh. By doing trails, you're turning. It's actually much easier to go longer. So I've done a few 50Ks. Yeah, exactly. So I've only done 100K, and that was the in Niagara, from lake to lake. It's from Niagara Lake to Fort Erie and back along the Niagara River. So you pass Niagara Falls twice.
You must have hit walls.
Oh yeah.
Marathon. Some people, my wife did a marathon and a half marathon, and I watched. But yeah. But are there walls you hit, and how do you get through that? And does faith have anything, or what spurred you on, first of all, to do that, and then to get through it?
Right. Well, for me, the idea of a marathon didn't really happen until 20s. I already had run a lot and did a lot of 5K runs. But yeah, there's no question that a marathon, doing 20 miles is not too difficult for most people. Most people don't realize that from mile 20 to mile 26 is when your body runs out of the glycogen that's stored in the actual muscle cells. And that's when you have to start using the free fatty acids in the bloodstream, blah, blah, blah. What it actually means is that wall is when your body starts to use a different energy source. And that energy source actually is almost infinite. You have enough in a tablespoon to run something like 100 miles. So the energy isn't the problem, it's accessing the energy. And that's a whole different system, which doesn't really start happening until you get to that endurance point. And after that, if you can get through that wall, then it's quite a bit easier to just keep going at that point. Now, at that point, your body and your mind is in a different space for sure. And it is meditational. There's Kurus is the most famous record holder for marathons for a 10-day runs, 6-day runs. So there's a lot of races where it's not the distance that is the finish line, it's how far you go in a certain amount of time. I've done the 6-hour Sri Srimnoy race in Kingston, where you run around the fort for 6 hours, and whoever goes the farthest wins. So Sri Srimnoy is sort of a Zen thinker. I think he holds the world record for the left arm push. He decided that was one he could do, and so he spent a crazy amount of time. He's famous for his cranes. He drew something like 100,000 cranes. So everything for him is going farther than what you think you should be able to do, and in that place you find there's peace, or at least there's a different mind experience. And so a lot of his athletes are people who run 6 days straight with an hour of sleep a day kind of thing, and get into this different meditational state. And there's no question that going long feels like that. For me, it's running in the woods. As I mentioned, running in the Rouge Valley, I ran earlier today, and you get in the middle of the forest and you don't see anybody anywhere, and the trees have been there for 100 years and nothing changes. The next day, the trees are still there, and it just sort of calms you in a way that music does as well. But running long definitely has that experience for sure.
I find you so inspiring always, to your attitude. You consider yourself an optimist in life?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Excuse me. With that in mind, who inspires you? Or where did you find that inspiration and your wanting to push yourself and to repair the world, so to speak, in Jewish terms, Tikkun Olam, with what you're doing with the Hammer Group, but also just what inspires you?
Well, I hope that all teachers have the same lucky experience that I have, which is, I teach private piano, I teach private voice, piano, but wherever you find the children come in, and there's a purity of energy and the ability to look at life with open eyes. And so I'm inspired with every student that I'm working with, because we only get to experience our lives, but the more time you spend with other people, the more lives you experience. And when you're working with, I work with small groups. It's usually 10 to 15 kids. And so it's 10 kids, you can really, I stop the class and ask everyone what they had for lunch, or what their favorite subject is, or sport. And the exercise is then see if everyone's listened to everyone else and can all answer what everyone else's question was, right? But it's another way of getting into other people's lives. And some of the less fortunate situations that I'm in, it really brings you into how you can live a very, very positive life in a situation that's not great. I did private lessons in Regent Park for a little while with one girl who we had said was gifted enough. Let's give her some private lessons. And just the number of cockroaches you'd see in a room when you were actually in the room, and that was I think it was a 2-room for the 5 people in that family. And she came to school every day with this energy and positiveness, and wow, that reminds you of how fortunate we are, and reminds you very quickly how easy it is to be positive. If these people with less can be positive, how can we complain about things? It's
right. Very inspiring. It's been amazing, a little over an hour to talk with you.
Thank you,
and learn a little bit about your life and some of the great work you do professionally and personally. So thank you so much. Did you have time to play us out with another song?
Sure.
Don't mean to surprise you.
Here's one for I wasn't planning on doing it, but it just came to me, and Jewish composer, and you
Wow.
all know it. And in this time of COVID, we're all looking somewhere else.
Beautiful. One of my favorite movies as a kid.
Yeah.
Well, and it transports us to this wonderful land. And thank you for all your work you do with Temple Sinai and the Hammer Band and with and your life in general. It's been an inspiration to hear you.
Thank you very much. It's fun to talk.
Thanks.